the panzers. The maps showed that they were held back in reserve, not pushed forward to hold the beaches. Between the vulnerable British invasion beaches and the massive German reserves were two parallel water obstacles, the River Orne and its canal. They were crossed by just a single pair of bridges. These were the only way across. For the British, this was the decisive point. These key bridges were photographed every day, and their defences mapped in detail. In their eagerness to ensure that the attack went perfectly, the British went one step further and made a model of the area. It was modified to match each day's aerial photographs. When the Germans cut down some trees, the model makers did the same. But the challenge was immense. How could these bridges be seized before the Germans, who had explosive charges to hand, could blow them sky high? The answer came from the air, assault by glider. With the King and Queen in attendance, enthusiasts showed that it was possible to land groups of gliders in confined spaces, so that the men they carried could all converge on their objective at the same moment. The point proved 3,000 young pilots were trained to fly these one-way missions in their plywood craft.
I joined the Territorials in 1939, being young, looking for adventure, I suppose. I volunteered for one or two other jobs, such as paratroops and things like that. But then the notice went up, volunteers required to be glider pilots. So I applied, was accepted, went for an aircrew selection board and passed that, and then went away to learn to fly in the August of 1942. We were given our wings, and from there went on to the Hawser, the big glider, which we flew to Normandy. And that was when you thought, ah, what have I done? Why am I here? Many people commented on the way we came down, and it was quite a steep angle of approach, far removed from anything of a normal aircraft. You didn't want to be in the air too long because you became a jolly good sitting target for anybody who was going to take umbrage at your presence. So you put your flaps down and then you went.
156,000 men prepared themselves for battle on D-Day. Spearheading this enormous force were the troops hand-picked to capture the bridges, and seated at the very tip of the spearhead, flying in these small teams, were to be 6 exceptional glider pilots. They would have a cockpit view of the battlefield and would be witnesses, or victims, of the very first gunshots of D-Day. Jeff Barkway was chosen to be one of them. His logbook shows that with his co-pilot, Peter Boyle, he rehearsed the planned flight path 42 times by day and night.
One particular night stays in my memory. We touched down into this particular field and I couldn't see against the background of the trees any other gliders there. So I said to Peter, my second pilot, we're going to roll up into #1 position. When suddenly out of the darkness loomed this big fin and rudder of another glider which had arrived, but we couldn't see it because it was hidden by the trees. So we slewed round to one side, and I think we got our wings locked together, but no other great damage was done, and nothing was done to Peter and I. When there was suddenly a terrific rush of air and a swish of wings, and then a horrible crash from the other side of the trees, and 2 gliders had landed one behind each other, and the third chap had come in and gone right through the pair of them. So we'd started off with 6 gliders. We managed to write off 5 of them, and the 6th one landed on the wrong aerodrome anyway. I think at that time, confidence in the operation began to be a bit shaky, but we improved from then on.
The troops who were to land from the sea were also... For Jeff Barquet and the other glider troops, typically, preparation went one stage further than anyone else's. For the first time ever, these soldiers were to be shown a preview of their entry into battle.
That's the river and the canal.
Their amateur movie showed the glider's route. 5 miles inland, a right turn, another 3 miles, and another right turn back to the bridge. Then the camera was ingeniously hung above the model and, in imitation of the flight path, glided across country down to the landing point.
It actually used to fly in over these trees, and it actually used to hit one of the trees. I can remember that, because everybody used to sort of cry, oops. Now this is more. We came in like this. All the lads were all quite bucked. In fact, I think they were told to be quiet when we got to the French coast. Otherwise it would have been rather odd to suddenly hear bawdy British songs bursting out over the French countryside, wouldn't it? It would have been suspicious, to say the least. Now that's the river, isn't it? I was busy looking at the compass and the altimeter and the airspeed indicator. They were the three things I needed to watch. Whilst Peter was calling the time and the next course to fly on. And then at the end of 2 minutes, something like that, Peter said, right, on to the next course. So we turned to starboard. We're coming down all the time. And then that's when we saw the bridge. Peter saw it first, I think, and then I saw it. And I think we turned into the final approach, applied flat. We're coming in now, nearly in. Troops are standing by. Hold tight, fellas, we're nearly down. Begin to level out, hold back, nearly down. Watch your speed, watch your speed. I remember this crash and the water came in and this all disintegrated and I went out through the front, and Peter went out through the front. And he says that I dragged him out, and then in getting out myself, I got shot, but I don't remember this. It's all a blur after that.
Jeff Barquet and Peter Boyle, his co-pilot, were thrown through the cockpit into the pond. One of their passengers was drowned. As they scrambled out of the water, they could hear shouts and explosions on the bridge as the troops they'd carried fought for their objective. Whatever happened now, it would be at least 12 hours before troops landed from the sea could break through to relieve them.